So we'll talk about emergency communications, why that is so important, and we'll talk about emergency scenarios. You recall during the first sessions, I realized several of you weren't at the first session. You did not have the opportunity to go through the standard response protocol. Don't worry, we're going to recap that today, and we're going to have a brief video before we go into breakout sessions. So we will break you out into teams. You'll be in a breakout room, and you'll have the opportunity to go through a moderated emergency, simulated emergency scenario. So again, a few caveats. There are no right or wrong answers. It's a totally safe space. I want you to know that this entire session is a safe space for questions, concerns, bring them up. This is the place to have that conversation. This is not graded in any way. We're not going to be keeping score and saying, oh, you didn't get this answer right. Nope. That's not what this is about. This is all about learning. This is about exposing you to situations that you can think about ahead of time, so you don't reach a particular situation and say, nobody ever talked to me about this. We don't know what we're going to do here. We want to help prepare you. We'll go through an evacuation simulation, but before we do that, we're going to take a brief break. We realize this is a long haul, and we should be able to take a break. If you need to take a break anytime before then, please just remember, mute out and go off camera. We're perfectly okay. You can rejoin us and pick up and join momentum as you come back. We just ask that if you do that, please try to limit that, because understand we're covering a lot of ground, a lot of material in a short time. So once we get down or through the evacuation scenario, we'll regroup, come back together. We'll talk about what went well, what could go better, and what other measures or concerns or procedures we can come up with or suggest. And we'll summarize it. We'll wrap up with a Q&A, and then we'll wrap up the session. So with that, let's go to the next slide. And we have a poll for you. And we're going to ask you to answer these questions, and then we'll put the response up momentarily when the responses come in. And again, no right or wrong answers. Don't worry about how this is not graded.
So what are the choices?
Choices are, you felt really, okay, so
It's the second question, Pete. There was a mistake on that first.
Yeah, there was a mistake in the way. I'm sorry. So let me read it. Take a moment, think about a time when you experienced an emergency in the past. How did you respond? So choose one of the following. You felt really well prepared. You did okay, but you wish you were better prepared, or you didn't know what to do.
I'm sorry, I'm confused. So the experience in emergency, the choice 1 and choice 2, where are those?
Sorry, just answer question 2.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
No, I apologize.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry about that. It was
No, that's me not paying attention. Thank you.
Yeah, it's question 2. That's the only one.
Okay.
Okay, so I think all right, so I think the results are in. I think 17%, 2 out of the group here felt really well prepared. And for the majority, 83%, the rest of our group, we did okay, but we wish we were better prepared. That's probably true for most of us. We always think in retrospect, yeah, if I'd have known X, Y, Z, I probably would have dealt with that a little differently, or took some different steps or actions. So that's fine. Again, that's why we're here. Okay, let's go to the next. Thank you. Here are our session objectives. Basically 3 things. We want to discuss the importance of emergency communications. Why is that important? Why does it matter? Identify the decisions and actions you may need to take, because as soon as you communicate something, as soon as you become aware of something, well, typically one of the first impulsive things you want to do is say, hey, do I need to tell someone else about this? think about if you saw a fire in a trash can. You're going, okay, I see this. I've identified it. It's a potential hazard. I know about it, but do my coworkers know about it? What do we need to do about it? That's what we're going to find out. And then we're going to talk about the communication tools that the foundation has invested in, and that is the Motorola TLK-110, the two-way radios that have recently been purchased and acquired for your use. So we'll talk about those. Those are the three main things. Okay, so first we're going to jump into Intro to Emergency Communication Procedures. And then what we're going to cover in there are some things like what to say, how to say them, what are some of the potential trap doors you fall into when you're in communications, when you're in kind of, the heat of the moment and you're trying to communicate something. We're going to talk about the standard response protocol. Again, very important. Why? Because it sets a framework out so you don't have to do a lot of thinking about, well, this is an emergency. How do I say this? How do I put it out? How do I talk about it? How do I communicate it? And then, more importantly, what do I do? Well, the standard response protocol is something that is used. It's currently in use by a majority of our public schools. It's a very straightforward, intuitive set of procedures, and it also has communication that you can use during an emergency. That's straightforward. So it eliminates the guesswork, because you know what? In the heat of the moment, you'll become so overwhelmed with everything that you have to think about that it becomes difficult to say, oh, well, how do I effectively get this out? What do I need to say? And then, as I alluded to earlier, we're going to break you out into breakout rooms, and we'll actually walk through what we call a tabletop simulation. So we're going to start with, well, I'll wait until we get there, and then we'll tell you what those are. Any questions so far? Okay. All right, let's start. Let's launch right in. Emergency communications procedures. So why is emergency communication important? We talked about that. We touched on that. It's an essential part of emergency response. It's one of the first things you need to do because it ensures a timely response and it minimizes confusion. So if you're in an emergency, think about, again, back to your emergency situations. There are probably several of you where you might have had to call 911 to get help or to get first responders on their way. There might have been a situation where you might have had to get on your cell phone and say, hey, I need some help over here. I need somebody to help me with this. You might have just used a verbal communication and said to someone, a coworker next to you, hey, can you help me with this? There's a lot of people coming in. Can we get some more people to help with this? Communication is just important, and it's not just in relation to emergencies. It's just an effective way to mobilize resources and minimize confusion. And it helps to, in some cases, delegate the work so that you're not saturated, you're not overwhelmed. In an emergency situation, it can definitely protect lives because it helps to coordinate response efforts. So again, thinking about, I'm going to give you a little glimpse into the simulation exercise. When you're using your radios, you're not just using your radios to communicate internally with your coworkers. You're also having to designate and say, well, wait a minute, we all know about this inside the building, but has anyone called 911? Has anyone called 911 to report a fire or that we need police response or medical response? So keep that in mind too. There's your internal communication, and then there's a need to also establish communication outside to make sure that you have the help that you need on its way. So that is a good segue into the last statement, which the communication promotes faster recovery and restoration of normal operations. So the quicker you get your help, the help that you need, the faster you can get back to doing what it is that you're there to do. Okay, let's start with the recap of the standard response protocol. Again, I mentioned that this is something that any of you, if you have students in school, the chances are overwhelmingly in the favor of that already are familiar with the standard response protocol. It was developed by the I Love You Guys Foundation after the Parkland disaster, the situation with unfortunate situation with school shootings. And basically it recognized a need to encapsulate emergency procedures and communication into one compact package that can be easily learned, easily shared, and it can be easily understood, not just with the people using it, but law enforcement, fire, medical, they all understand this. It's just as a kind of a way of polling. Does anyone here familiar with SRP, used it before? Show of hands, yes, no? Looks like no, okay. All right, so then we're good. We're gonna do the recap. These are the standard, there's 5 different components to the standard response protocol. It's based on these actions. So hold is, you can see the logo is a bar across the door. Basically, that's hold in your room or area, clear the halls. Why would you use that? Let's say a coworker has a medical condition, they need medical assistance. You would want to minimize any confusion or crowds or congestion. You want to make sure that the responding emergency medical response has a clear path to get to that person that needs the help as quickly and as efficiently as possible. So you would do a hold. You'd say, okay, please, if you have an exhibit or you have something going on, we're going to do a hold until medical response can get in, attend to the person that needs it, and then we can go back to business as usual. But you temporarily clear the halls. It is not about a threat. It is more about like a medical condition or if somebody just needs assistance. Secure, there's some kind of threat outside. It could be civil disturbance. It could be some criminal issue that's going on outside. Maybe police are dealing with something or some situation outside. And just to be sure, you want to make sure that that doesn't make its way inside your environment. So you just lock your outside doors. Business as usual. You continue to do your work, show your exhibits or talk about your, the cultural events, you're having your meetings. Everything is business as usual, but you've locked the outside doors, no one in, no one out. That's important because if someone goes out, remember, someone can piggyback and come in. So basically, if you're in secure mode, let's just all stay in place temporarily until the situation has been dealt with. So secure, there's something going on outside. It doesn't have to be a threat. It could be a threat, but it could be a situation that you don't want to make its way inside. Lockdown, that is a threat, and that is a threat. Typically, that's you only go into lockdown typically if you have a suspicion or confirmation that there is an armed threat inside your building. Now you're in a situation where it's survival mode. Locks, lights, out of sight. So everyone goes to, if you're in an enclosed office, what would that look like? You'd turn off your lights, you'd close and lock your door, you'd pull the shades, you'd get up under a table or desk, and you'd make it look as unoccupied as possible because you want that threat, if they're looking inside that area, you want it to look like there's no one there. There's no reason to enter that area. Keep on moving. That's exactly what that's for. It's to buy you time. Evacuate, self-explanatory. If you have anything that's, for example, like a fire in the building, or you have some kind of emergency that's happening, maybe there's some chemicals that were spilled, or there's some fumes in the building, and you need to get people out to avoid health situations, you evacuate. Now, you can evacuate to a temporary assembly area, which could be your employee parking lot, because that's the closest place. You could evacuate to the street, to the sidewalk outside, and gather up there. That's a good temporary area just to gather up and take a head count, because here's the other important thing. You want to make sure, just like we did in session 1, everyone collectively around the table was in a collective head nod when we said, Would you not be interested in taking care of the person next to you, your coworkers, the people you work with, your friends? Yeah, everyone wanted to do that. So when you're evacuating, the other piece to that is when you get outside, you're looking around to say, hey, did John make it? Did Tony make it? Is Amber out here? Are we all here? Take a head count. Make sure. Shelter in place is typically used in case of a hazard or safety strategy. Again, it looks a lot like hold, but it's a little different because it could be a hazmat issue. Let's just say a tanker truck that was going by overturned, and now there's chemicals and there's liquids or there's some kind of toxic fumes. Okay, so now you need to shelter in place temporarily. You will typically or probably get that notification from 911. 911 will put out a broadcast call and say, all businesses or areas or residents in this area, shelter in place. Okay, so you just close, again, just like hold, you lock your exterior doors, no one comes or goes. If there is someone outside, immediately bring them in so everyone can shelter and be in a protected area. So that is the in essence, that is the definition of the 5 elements. Let me pause if there's any questions. No questions? Okay. Let's move on to the next slide. I think we have a video for you. Can you pause for a second, Amber? Did everyone hear that, or do I need to, let's see, I think I need to adjust.
We could hear it. I could hear it.
Oh, you could all hear it?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Sorry.
So why is this stuff important? Little things happen on campus every single day, but occasionally, really big things happen too. The standard response protocol is based on 5 actions: hold, secure, lock down, evacuate, and shelter. A hold is when hallways and common areas need to be temporarily cleared. Immediately clear the hallways and remain in your area or room until all clear message is announced. A secure is when a threat is outside of a building. We first secure the perimeter by locking the outside doors.
Everybody in.
But inside, things continue, business as usual. A lockdown is much more serious. That's when the threat is inside. Get in your classroom, lock the doors, turn off the lights, and get out of sight as quickly as possible. Prepare to evade or defend against the threat. There are 2 ways to think about evacuation. If you see a safe exit out of the building, you have permission to take it.
So, this is where the
Everybody, we need to evacuate. Evacuate.
Now, if you're involved in a police evacuation, it's going to feel intense and maybe a little scary.
Police, show your hands. Police, let me see your hands. Hands up, do not move. Hands up, single file at the door. Keep your hands on your head.
With shelter, you'll receive a mass notification that will identify both the hazard and the safety strategy. Making sure you receive timely notifications is really important. The best way to do this is first to make sure that you know and sign up for Oregon Tech's Mass Notification Program, OT Alert. And secondly, make sure you keep your information up to date. So why is knowing about the standard response protocol so important? You should always take accountability for your personal safety and preparedness and know what to do in case of an emergency.
Okay, so let's just let's try a few questions here. This will be a good prep before we go into breakouts, but can anyone tell me which procedure would you probably want to initiate if there was if the ground started shaking? So you feel the ground shaking, you're at work, you're seeing tables and chairs start to vibrate. You're going up.
Shelter.
Cover up.
Shelter? Lovey, you said shelter.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. And I'm sorry, Robert, what did you say?
Cover up.
Yeah, well, drop, cover, hold, right? That's a part of the shelter in place. You saw in the video where the people were going under tables and they were holding on. So they were, they went into drop, cover, and hold mode. What about, let's say, civil disturbance, 911's calling saying, hey, there was a holdup, it was a block north of your building. What would you think about doing at that point?
Shelter in place.
Okay, shelter in place is one.
Secure.
Secure. There you go, secure. And why secure? Because your doors, exterior doors are locked, and I believe they're normally secured anyway. They're normally locked. No one can just walk in, which is great. So in essence, that's pushing the easy button for you, because you basically say, well, our building's already secure. We could still continue to do business as usual inside until we hear another update from the authorities to tell us it's all clear. Good, good. Okay, let's try you on another one. You're walking by the break room and you smell smoke, and you peek in there and you say, oh, there's a Pop-Tart that caught on fire. It's in the trash can. Not that anyone would do that, but let's just use that. Let's run with that. So, okay, now what?
Evacuate?
Yes, perfect, perfect. Now, what we'll do is in a moment, we're going to put up, we know that you have familiarity from being in the building. You know intuitively where most of your emergency exits are. Do you know where your fire extinguishers are located? Do you know where the emergency devices like your radios and vests, bullhorns, and those sorts of things are kept? So that's a good test. Now we're going to show you that in just a second. Well, first, before we go there, does anyone know, Beckett, that's not fair. You can't, you won't be able to respond. So does anyone know outside of Beckett where these things are? Okay, I see some nods. I see some, maybe. Okay.
No.
All right, let's go to the next slide, please. We might have to jump around in the slides a little bit, so bear with us.
Sorry, I was trying to get back to those slides here. Where were you wanting to go next?
A floor plan that shows, let's just go to the first floor, evacuation routes and locations of devices. And
Mixing some stuff up on me, so I gotta, one moment, please. Let me get us there.
yeah, that's fine. That's fine. But no, congratulations. You all are coming up with great answers, and you're responding just the way we'd hoped. And that shows that, you know, the SRP is an effective way to kind of remember what are the steps we need to take in the case of an emergency. Okay, so we're looking at the first floor. Obviously, you can recognize some of these, some of the landmarks, the parking lot, Belmont, Southeast 10. Want to thank Beckett for putting additional detail into these floor plans to kind of help orient folks, because we realize, hey, not everyone knows immediately which way are you, if you're in a big building like that, which way am I facing? What's the street? What's the direction? So thank you, Beckett, for putting together the additional detail. And what is also in there is the, if you see that triangle, that is showing you the location of your vest, your bullhorn, your flashlights. And also the red X with the yellow box is showing you where fire extinguishers are located. So to the greatest extent possible, we really encourage you to become familiar with this. Whenever you're just walking in the building, you're in the building, take this, walk around, verify for yourself. Say, there should be a fire extinguisher here right outside the office. If I'm on the north wing, is there? Double check, make sure, see for yourself. There should be 3 or 4 exits on the west facing side of the building, facing Southeast 10th. Go find, see where they are. Make sure you're familiar with where they are. Because at the time when an emergency occurs, who knows where you may be? You may be outside of your normal area where you normally work. You could be in another area of the building that may not be as familiar to you. So just like they tell you on the airplanes, look around and locate the nearest emergency exit. It may be behind you. It may be in a different location than what you're accustomed to seeing. So the more you can familiarize yourself with this, hey, the better. Okay, questions, thoughts, comments? I know that we've talked with you before, and we understand that not everyone works in the building every day. There's only maybe a small group of you that do. Can I see a real brief show of hands of people that work in the building pretty much day to day? All right. Okay. So for the rest of you that are come to the building on an infrequent basis, it's all the more important for you to know where those exits are located, because in the heat of the moment, you may forget. And it may be important to know how to get out of the building. There could be things going on. There could be smoke. There could be, confusion, and you just want to be sure. So I think one of the things that's in motion now at this time is, and Beckett may feel free to chime in, but the plan is to have one of these in major areas so you can orient yourself, so you can tell where you're at and where your nearest emergency exit is.
Yes, I've already got them printed out on big sheets. I just have to hang them up.
Great, that's great. There's your second floor, your ballroom, mezzanine, basement. Okay. All right, let's go back to our regular order of slides here.
Sorry, just one second. I guess we could ask a quick question for a little bit of fun. What is the best flavor of Pop-Tart? If cherry is the worst, Lovey, which one is the best?
Oh, I was saying Amber asked what flavor, and I said the worst one.
That's the one.
So the worst flavor. You responded cherry before I could type the worst flavor, but I don't really like Pop-Tart.
Oh, okay. Safe space. That's fine.
Okay, safe space. You can say that.
All right. Pete, are we going to emergency communications? Is that where you're ready to go?
Yeah, let's go back to emergency comms.
Okay, perfect. Thank you everyone for bearing with us. And if you have any other thoughts on Pop-Tarts, I'm here for that conversation as well. So
Oh, someone has organic.
Organic
There you go.
cherry pomegranate.
Woo.
that is
Never even heard of that.
They
flavor.
don't call them Pop-Tarts. They call them frosted toaster pastries.
Well, there's the difference. There's the difference right there. It's
didn't
not
know
an
that existed.
average Pop-Tart.
Learn something new every day.
Yep.
So Amber,
Class.
That is a word for it.
Applause.
Class of Pop-Tarts.
Amber, can we back up a slide or two just to make sure we didn't miss anything or cover? Okay, we talked about the SRP. Yes. Okay. Any questions about the SRP? You all seem to grasp that really quickly and came up with good answers. So, man, I'm feeling good. Okay, keep going. Let's go back to emergency comms. Okay, so the foundation's invested in employee safety, and it's a big step. And when I say that, I'm talking about the investment in the two-way radios, the Motorola TLK 110 specifically. We're going to do watch a brief video on just the basics, kind of Motorola two-way radio 101 demo. We're going to have someone actually show you. Tony's actually going to take a few minutes and show you. And then Beckett, I want to also invite you to just chime in because you are probably have been using the radio most frequently and are maybe more familiar with some of the functions. So you can kind of elaborate on anything else that we don't cover. So let's go back into the emergency comms. How's everyone doing? Oh, how's everyone doing? Still hanging in there? Good so far? Okay. Excellent.
K100, the Wave TLK 110 radio combines the flexibility of push-to-talk communication via broadband with the reliability of a rugged, purpose-built radio. At the top of the device, you will find a dedicated emergency button where you can instantly initiate calls in the case of an emergency. The device also has built-in lone worker and fall features. With the power of push-to-talk, you can communicate with a single person or the whole team at the push of a button. Wave provides seamless interoperability across multiple devices without the need for expensive infrastructure. Full suite of accessories are also available for this device, including a heavy-duty belt clip. Here you can insert the D-style earpiece with a built-in mic and push-to-talk button, meaning you won't even need to handle the radio to use it. This side of the device is also where you insert the USB-C charger for the TLK 110. Different to the TLK 100, this device comes with a 2-line monochrome display. Rest assured you'll have the power when you need it most. The TLK 110 comes with a battery that is designed to last for up to 18 hours. This rugged device is waterproof and dust-tight, making it the perfect radio for any working environment, including transportation, security, construction, and manufacturing. Some of the main key features of the TLK 110 are that you can communicate nationwide without limits using Wi-Fi and cellular networks. Have seamless interoperability across all your devices. It has AI-backed noise suppression, meaning you can hear and be heard in the noisiest of places. It also has a rugged design that is built for the toughest environments. A device that is designed for you and built to last. To complement the Wave TLK handsets, we can provide a Wave PTX mobile app and Wave PTX dispatcher. Motorola Wave is available to purchase, lease, or hire.
Okay.
Complementing the
Okay, so that was just a brief overview of your radios. I'm going to ask Tony to jump in now and take over and talk a little bit about some of the nuances. He's going to recap some of those features, but he's also going to cover some of the nuances associated with emergency comms, like congestion and the use of the push to talk and that sort of thing. So Tony, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you, Pete. In keeping with not overcomplicating the issue here, I just wanted to mention this is a very full-featured radio. Once again, it's the Motorola TLK Model 110, and I'd like to compliment at the NACF for their choice of quality equipment. It's my understanding that this radio can reach to all the confines of the building, whether you're in the basement, whichever floor, what end of the building you're on. But anyway, just recapping some of the more important things. I hope everyone can see this. I'm trying to get this in a position where everyone can see it. There is of course, this is the front of the radio, but if you turn it to the side, there's a small button here. That's your on and off button. And if you hold that down, that actually activates, turns the radio on. So that's how you power it on. The other thing to remember, once again, keeping this simplified, is this elongated button here is your push to talk button. Why is that important? Well, because it doesn't work like a cell phone. So when you need to talk, you need to hold that button down the entire time that you are transmitting. And the important takeaway here is we've come to learn through experience in emergency situations that stress will do weird things to you. So you might think you're keying that mic and you're communicating effectively, but you might not be. So just be mindful of the fact that you want to hold that down to ensure that you're transmitting. You have a small two buttons on the bottom here on the side. Also, it's your volume button. So if you have trouble hearing, my understanding is that these are really good sound quality radios. But once again, you do have these two buttons here to either reduce or increase the volume. There is a small toggle switch on the top that is designed to change frequencies. Now, I'll have to defer to Beckett regarding that because that involves the changing of channels, which might inadvertently happen. So I'm not 100% sure where, if you guys have a set channel or group, if you will. Beckett, did you want to speak to that briefly? And then I'll pick right back up after.
I haven't really played around with them. We just got them. Kevin,
I can answer that.
Yeah, Kevin can answer that.
Yeah, right now there are some groups set up in the system, but we're not using them. And if you change the channels on the radio, you can see that the kind of groups change. We just haven't used them yet because once again, like Pete was saying, like we don't have enough people in the building using them. Right now we got everybody on CNEC building channel.
Great. Okay, thank you very much, both of you, for that, because that's what I was going to encourage. The simpler, the better, because in high stress situations, I've learned from years in law enforcement, even when my police department has acquired new equipment, it has all the new bells and whistles that the vendors want to use to, of course, to sell it to you, and that's a good thing. You want a full-featured radio, but there again, the goal here is to keep it simplified because theoretically we're dealing with a very high stress situation, whether we're sheltering, whether we're evacuating, what have you. Now, briefly, I'd like to touch on, once again, high stress situations might involve a scenario where everyone's trying to talk at one time, which creates radio congestion. So if that were to happen, what you'd look to do is to have one of the floor wardens or the individual who has identified the problem to key the mic and say, there's a lot of times, we have a lot of verbiage to think about and whatnot, but what we're going to try to impart to you guys is to use key words, like lockdown, evacuate, things like that. So your brain is, I'm telling you right now, in a stress situation, you're going to just want to think on the basic level. So use plain language. If you happen to think of the word lockdown, if that's what the case is, say that. But use plain language. Just tell everybody what's going on. Just say, hey, this is a scenario. And if you need the channel, say, hey, this is Tony. Please clear the channel. It has some very important information to tell you. And that, I think that does that's a very effective means of communication. So once again, this is just one more tool in your toolbox to help you in these type situations. So that being said, I'll turn it back over to you, Pete.
Thank you, Tony. That's great. That's helpful. Thank you, Beckett, and also you, Kevin, for adding some other information to that. A couple other pieces we wanted to add is why a two-way radio? Why can't I just use my cell phone? Well, I don't know if, again, if we go back to the emergency situations we've had to recall, sometimes cell phones don't work perfectly. In a perfect world, they would. But in a situation that there could be some other extenuating circumstances, who knows, a cell phone tower may be down, coverage may be, not complete inside the building. You might not have good cell phone coverage. So if you need in that instant, in that moment, to let your coworkers and others know that there's something going on, that radio provides instant point-to-point communication. Boom. It's clear point A to point B. And if you need to, you can just, again, as Tony mentioned, you key the mic, you say, this is to let everyone know we're going into lockdown. Everyone else that has a radio will hear that, unlike with a cell phone. So basically, instead of having to call each person and, oh, what did I do with that number? I don't have that contact number. Nope, the radio eliminates that. It makes it fast, it makes it efficient, it makes it real time. So that's why the radio is important. The other thing is, as a suggestion, and this may be helpful in terms of we've often heard it said, hey, when I come into the building, because I only come here once or twice a month, I have no idea who else is working in here. Wouldn't it be nice to kind of at least have an idea? Well, here's one suggestion that might help. If you have a radio, a central place right near your entrance where you come in, and you have the radios sitting in their chargers, and we already see that one radio has a name on it. So if you're putting names on those, that's good. That's just another thing to help you. But if you go to that storage location where all the radios are kept and you pull one out and you see, oh, 3 others are missing. Well, let's see the names where those radios are missing. That's Gabby, that's Kevin, that's Beckett. I know at least that as far as people that have other radios, these individuals have their radios. These individuals are also in the building. So right then and there, you have some awareness. Now, that may not be everyone because everyone may not have a radio. But guess what? That at least will give you that much information to say, at least I know these individuals are in the building. So if I get on the radio, I know who I'm talking to. And I know who's going to probably hear me. So that's a good thing to have. Okay. Any questions? Thoughts?
So Pete, some of us prefer to text and we don't want to talk. So how do we handle it if we've all of a sudden got to talk on a radio and we haven't talked on a phone or any device for a hot second? What's your advice? If you feel like your brain goes blank and you don't think of any words that you're supposed to say, you get nervous, what do we do?
Sure. So the first thing is don't get too, I guess, worked up as far as saying, okay, am I going to say the right thing when I get on the radio?
Take a deep breath.
Take a deep breath, try to be calm for that moment and just think about, slow things down a couple of beats and just say, okay, you know what? I don't remember what Pete said. I don't remember what to say if there's a lockdown. Use plain language. This is Pete. There's something going on in the building. There's something going on in the building. I want everyone to know. So that way, someone is probably going to remember. And just like we had the little quiz here, informal quiz, and people chimed in and say, "Oh yeah, that's a lockdown. Oh, that's an evacuate." Someone will probably figure that out and say, "Okay, well," they might jump on the radio and say, "We're in lockdown." Boom! Everybody start doing what you need to do to go into lockdown. The other thing that you can do to kind of become more familiarized is when you do come to the building, pick up a radio, play with it. Just say, hey, this is Pete. I'm in the building. I just want to do a check. Can everyone hear me? And then you listen. Other people come in. Yep, this is Kevin. I heard you. This is Gabby. I heard you. Great. Okay, well, this is Pete. I'm going to be working here in the exhibit room. Nice. Okay, thank you for letting us know. So right then and there, that helps alleviate that uncertainty and that uncomfortable feeling that you sometimes have when you go in a big place and you don't know who else is in there. At least you know who else is in there, where your friends are, where your coworkers are. So you see how that's important? Someone posted in the chat, say a single word. Others will follow up with questions. Excellent. I love it. Excellent. If you can think of nothing else, just say fire. Someone will come. Where? Who? Where? What? When? Another question, will all our radios be assigned to individuals or will there be floating radios? I have to defer to the foundation on that one.
Right now we only have 6. I think 6 is there's hardly ever 6 people in the building except for events and stuff like that. But, once we start, populating the building more, we will get more. But until then, we're going to have 6.
Okay.
Yeah, I foresee them primarily being used for events right now when we have multiple people in the building.
And with events, I think we assign who has walkies. And that's usually in the run-up show as well. So
Hey, that's perfect. So if you're in the run-up, as you say, and the preliminary planning, you can assign and you can determine at that point, okay, you're going to have an exhibit, you're going to have a walkie-talkie, you're going to have a radio. So that way we can talk to you and you can let others know that you're in the building and how your event's going. So these are great questions. Others? Okay. If nothing else, let's move. We have a nomination. I'm pleased to announce. Let's see. Lovey is being nominated for fire warden. So Lovey, if you're willing to accept this distinction and this honor, we will turn it over to the foundation to bestow it upon you at this point.
I kindly return that position to Amber. I think she is a wonderful fire warden. I will gladly be if she's somehow incapacitated, I'll take it on, but otherwise.
There can be a partner arrangement, there can be a team arrangement, the more the better. Here's the other thing I should have said, and I mentioned this at the first training. We are trying to provide everyone with the same level, so basically everyone's a fire warden. You just don't know it. But in the reality and in the heat of the moment, you would be functioning as a fire warden. We just don't want to get hung up on the titles because then everyone's going, who's the fire warden? Where is the fire warden? Oh, it's me. So that's good for you and it's good for your coworkers and it works. So great, but we'll take that. So Lovey, if you want, you can take honorary fire warden as your title if you'd like. And you can talk about it with Amber later. So good. All right, moving on.
And Tristan's working on the vest, so there's going to be.
Oh, he's got some really spectacular ideas, and we're impressed.
Tristan said there's.
Oh, the upgrades that was a joke. I'm sorry. I should not.
I'm teasing back.
Well, we were impressed, and we thought, well, why not? Tristan said something like flare guns and I forget what else was in the rest of it, but it was impressive.
Thank you.
Okay, so we are getting ready to go into the emergency scenarios and simulations. As I mentioned before, we'll be breaking you out into groups, primarily two breakout rooms. So half of you will go in a room with Tony as moderator, and half of you will go with me, and you'll have to put up with me as moderator. So we'll have a little over 10 minutes or so to work through. I don't think we're going to need that much time. And then we'll regroup as a group and we'll discuss what went well, what do you think we could have done differently, and any suggestions for improvements. And again, this is totally safe space. Questions, totally encouraged. No right or wrong answers, no grading criteria. So if everyone is okay with that, Amber, are we at a place? Oh yeah, let's do this really quickly as a brief recap. Here are the 5 procedures. Hold. So if you have a medical emergency, you have a need to clear the halls because you need to give access to first responders, hold. Doesn't necessarily mean it's a security case, but it could be. It could be a disturbance in a classroom or in a room or an area. And you could just say, well, let's just everyone hold in their area and just let's wait and give first responders a clear path. Secure. You know that the threat is outside the building. You've seen things. Maybe you see somebody that looks like it's a car prowl in progress. Somebody's trying to break into something, and you don't want that crime to work its way inside your workplace. Secure. Lockdown. Lockdown is threat inside the building. Locks, lights, out of sight. Evacuate. Self-explanatory. It's time to evacuate, leave the building. Shelter in place could be the easiest thing to relate to is earthquake. Drop, cover, hold. Just basically hold in your area, hold your position. It's different from hold because you're actually doing some other things. You might be holding on to the desk and taking cover under a desk. Okay, so we covered a couple of the points. Again, line of sight is important. Circumstances determine the tactics. It may not always be cut and dried. You may have to vary the formula a little bit. If you can self-evacuate, yes, as long as there's no impediments to you getting out of the harm's way quickly, efficiently. You don't have to fumble with the door. Yeah, safely. You're right next to a door, literally. You can step out that door and run to freedom. Do so. Communicating, making sure first responders know about that situation. That is so important. And I'm glad, Tony, that you touched on that because, yeah, we're talking on the radio. We're telling each other something's going on. Hey, did anyone call 911?
No.
That would be, yeah, that you want to make sure you get that call going as soon as possible. If you don't do anything else, if you have the radio, you should be turning to someone saying, Gabby, Kevin, Pete, Tony, call 911. And they can basically, that way you know that call's going out and help is on the way.
Seconds count. Yes.
All right. Okay, well, I can tell. I think we're at a place where people will probably use a good break. So let's take a short break. 5 minutes. Let's keep it brief. Get yourself some refreshments, get up, stretch, walk around, do what you have to do. And then let's come back together in 5 minutes so we can make sure we cover the rest of the ground and share with you what we need to share. Okay.
Grab a bougie Pop-Tart if you have it, and that sounds good to you.
See you in 5.
All right.
Okay, so we just finished the simulation on lockdown, and ideally we would like to be able to run through the complete spectrum of different procedures. We may have time to run in or to do some others, but for now, what we would like to do is concentrate on the evacuation piece. Why? Because we already started the building blocks of evacuation and the importance of that and the procedures and some of the things that need to happen regarding evacuation. When we brought in Lieutenant Picard from Portland Fire and Rescue, he showed us some of the basics of building fire, life, and safety. He talked about fire extinguishers, how to use them, how to deploy them. He gave us some decision factors to think about, well, if it's a fire that's much bigger than a fire in a trash can, you probably don't want to fight it, don't have the time or the equipment to fight it. So the safest thing is to get out. He talked about the technique for, the pass technique, pulling the pin, aiming the fire extinguisher, aim low at the base or source of the fire, squeeze and spray. So pass, basically continue to do that until the fire is extinguished. If that doesn't do it, it's time to evacuate. You don't want to continue to stay and place yourself at risk. And you want to make sure you give yourself and your coworkers sufficient time to react and to evacuate. We talked about evacuation routes. So as Beckett indicated, there's plans to expand and put these floor plans on a larger like poster board and mount those in conspicuous locations so you can locate yourself and orient yourself at any given time. If you happen to become disoriented or you need to know where am I? What's the closest emergency exit? You can see at a glance. You can also see at a glance where your closest fire extinguisher, first aid kits, and your emergency equipment, your vest, your bullhorn, your flashlight. I want to encourage you again that if ideally, when you reach a place where you're able, I think it was mentioned earlier, the plan is eventually to acquire additional radios. Until that time, I think it would be great to just consider that the thought of having radios positioned in a place where when you first come in your building, they have a nameplate on them. You can have visitor 1, visitor 2, visitor 3 for those that you are just kind of like floating radios. And then at least at a glance, when you walk in the building, you know when you pull a radio out of the box, oh, 3 are missing. And I can see the names of in the spaces where they're missing. So I have an idea who else is here. Get on the radio, confirm it. I mean, after all, that's one way that you're going to get more comfortable talking on the radio is just by using it. And again, there's no right or wrong, just plain language. This is Pete. I'm in the building. I'm going to be working in the storage area. Great. We heard you. We know you're here. So know your evacuation routes, because at any given time, you may be working in any of these particular areas. Maybe you don't have an assigned space. Maybe you kind of work in different areas. So it's actually helpful to know if I'm in this area, this black box area, there's a garage door here. If I'm over in the southwest quadrant of the building, there are 2 exits over here, and so on and so forth with the other wings or the other areas of the building. So in a moment, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to have a breakout room. We're going to have you in the rooms, and you'll have an opportunity to tell us once an evacuation has been implemented, what are the immediate actions. We want you to think about where your closest emergency exit is. So moderators, I think we can bring this up and share it, because Amber, if I'm not mistaken, what we'll be seeing is just the scenario outline, correct? Okay, so we'll try to pull up the evacuation route for you too. And that way you can, at a glance, look at the map and tell which way would you be thinking of getting out.
So you would like the scenario or the evacuation route in the breakout room?
I think the scenario, because everyone needs to see what is the trigger, what's the thing that's gets us going, and then what are some of the prompts or things that we need to be thinking about. So let's go back to our slides.
If you can give me 1 second here.
Yes.
You wanted to go back to the reunification, or you want to go?
No, back to the, we're talking about the second breakout.
Got it. Sorry.
So, that's okay.
The coffee reaches its point of it's done its work. There we go.
Okay. So the scenario is that a fire starts in the basement of the building, triggers fire alarm, which, as I understand it, that means that your sprinkler system is going to deploy. So that's how you know that a fire has reached a certain threshold or temperature. Fire life safety director receives the alert, initiates an evacuation. Basically, going back to the standard response protocol, you're using your radio, you're keying the mic, and you're announcing evacuate, evacuate, evacuate. So everyone proceed to the nearest exit. And again, don't worry about trying to memorize this script word for word. It's not that important. What you mainly need to know is tell someone. You have to communicate. You have to get that out. The other thing is it's important to make 911 aware. So I know I'm giving away a lot of the stuff here, but we just want to emphasize that and make sure that everyone remembers. So with that, same as before, we'll have about 8 minutes to work through this. Want everyone to encourage everyone to participate and offer up ideas, suggestions, what your actions would be. Remember, you're not a bystander, you are a participant. You are there. Okay, so let's recap. Let's talk about what happened. What was the trigger? The trigger was that there was a fire that started in the basement that caused activation of the fire system, the sprinkler system. So with the sprinklers going off, we immediately know something is wrong, and it's a heat source that's gotten out of hand, because that's what will trigger the fire sprinkler system. So that then set into motion another series of events where someone with a radio had to get on there. And I'm going to start with Kevin, let him briefly recap. He was our person on point with the radio. So Kevin, would you be kind enough to briefly step through the things that you did?
I mentioned getting on the radio, letting everybody know there is a fire, and letting them know if I know where it is, let them know where it is. So that'll give them a better idea to where to exit or what area not to go to. Also, start looking in my immediate area for people who are in the building, let them know. But I forgot to tell somebody to call 911. So I'm going to add that. So
can I stop you there just a minute? Because I got to put in a plug for this. Is the floor warden aspect of it. When you said, I'm going to check my area to see if there are others that are in that area. And why? Because they may not have heard, they may not be aware. Who knows? Maybe the sprinkler system isn't affecting the area that they're in. They may be in a restroom. So it's incumbent upon us, again, think about how important are your coworkers? How important are those folks that work alongside you? They're so important. They're very important. You got to make sure that we're taking care of not just ourselves, but each other. So as a way to do that, we're making sure we're doing a sweep of our area to make sure there's no one left behind. So just want to put that plug in. It's very important. And calling 911, because we may know about the fire, but maybe the fire department doesn't. They're 3 to 4 minutes away, according to Lieutenant Picard. If we wait another 10 minutes and we're all gathered outside and we go, oh, but nobody called fire, well, it's going to take them another 3 to 4 minutes on top of the 10 minutes or so it took us to get out. So now, things are lost. So good. Please continue.
Also, I mentioned, as like you sweeping through the area, shutting doors to help prevent the fire from spreading. It's a good thing to do. Get out to the designated area, and also I mentioned on the radio a couple more times just to make sure that everybody heard it. I think that was about it.
Good. We got another nomination, Kevin. Floor warden. We're building a floor warden, a corps of floor wardens here. Good. Excellent. Good job. All right. Tony, you want to take through some of what your team talked about?
Absolutely. We covered some of the things that Kevin mentioned. Great job. And we thought about, so many different things, like a point in time where you may think, is it possible? Should I even attempt to deal with this fire? And you brought up a very good point. If it's, you may initially attack it with a fire extinguisher where, where a fire extinguisher is, but if it gets beyond your ability to control it, then of course you have to shift into the evacuation phase. And just like you brought up all of the good points we talked about as well in our group, that maybe somebody's on the 3rd floor, maybe somebody's in the basement. And I believe Beckett brought up a good point. The fire system it's based on temperature, so it might only treat this isolated area where that particular fire is. So but
that's why it's important to do that sweep, because we talked about that. We said, well, it could be that the sprinkler system isn't operating in this particular wing or corner. So guess what? The folks working over there, they don't know. And so we have to make sure we bring them with us, and bring them along with us. Good.
Right. And also, don't forget to dial 911, because and with everything going on and your adrenaline pumping, it's such an easy thing to forget. Oh, I thought you called them. Oh no, I thought you called them. So in that amount of time, things can a lot of bad things can happen. So, and then we talked about the importance of an assembly point and doing a head count. These are all important things. And if you know, if you have the capacity to relate any pertinent details to emergency services personnel, such as, the folks that work there on a daily basis probably have a cognitive map in their mind of where north, south, east, west is. We have a fire in the southeast corner of the building, or in the kitchen. And also, correct me if I'm wrong, but we have provided or will provide emergency services, fire department branch and the police department with a detailed map, floor map of the entire building, so that when we reference certain areas of the building, they're already on board. They know exactly what we're talking about.
Does anyone recall, I think I recall Lieutenant Picard mentioning, he said that with the fire, that they do have those floor plans of buildings. So when they respond, they know, okay, if it's second floor, they know where they're going. Beth, you're nodding your head, so I think you heard that. And
that is, I can't speak to the importance of that. Years ago when I was on our SWAT team, that's the first thing we asked for if we have to respond. Where we need to know what the layout of that building, and that helps save our lives when we have to go in. So
good,
yeah,
good. Okay, good. Well, it sounds like both teams did really great, and there were some great observations, as there was with the first scenario. Really great to see how everyone is engaged and thinking about these things. And this is the best way possible, one of the best environments to bring these things and thoughts together and think about them now before you need them. So I really want to give credit to all of you for participating. So
absolutely.
All right. So any other questions, thoughts, anything we didn't talk about? Any lingering questions? If not, we'll go back to the slides and let's go forward.
And I just want to make sure I'm where you are, Pete.
Oh, yeah, that's a yes.
A couple of times here. Are we going to the assembly area reunification?
Yes, because that question did come up. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Let me get right there and we will share.
Okay, so the question came up, and the question was that, well, we're not sure if, depending on how many people are in the building, if there's an exhibit or if there's something happening where we've got a public event, then the employee parking lot may not accommodate all the people that we need to bring outside. Got that, understand. So let's first start by defining what's the difference between an assembly area and a reunification site. An assembly area is basically in the vicinity of the building. It's the immediate vicinity of the building where you can step outside the building, where you can take a quick visual glance around. Did everyone make it? Do we have everyone? Let's do a quick head count. Everyone's here. I see Gabby, Kevin, Beckett, Amber, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. Does anyone need any medical assistance immediately right now? Okay. If we're all mobile, let's move a little further out, because one of the other things is, heaven forbid, if there's a building fire code says you have to be a minimum of 50 feet away from the building. The other thing that you have to keep in mind is, once you've notified response, they're going to be coming. They're going to be coming on the run, and they're going to need a clear path and no congested avenues when they get to your building or site. They need to have access to be able to go in and address the situation. So we don't want to be clustered up around blocking their path or access way. So that's why the assembly area is just temporary. It's just where you just do a quick gather and quick head count and then move on. So your reunification site is, we've designated several suggested off-site locations. And here's, a couple of them: Washington High School, Field and Park, where people can evacuate and reunify at a safe distance. There you can kind of catch a beat, take a couple of breaths, think about, okay, is everyone safe? Everyone okay? Is there anyone injured? Does anyone need first aid? Because if you are able to, if it's within quick reach and you have first aid kit available, maybe someone needs first aid, you can call 911. You can say, we're at this location. We just evacuated from our building. We have 2 people that need medical attention. That's how you can regroup. So let's show you what some of these sites, several of these sites are. So depending on the orientation of the fire, the threat, or what's happening, there's a reunification site at Southeast 12th in Washington. That's the high school field and park. That's 2 blocks northeast of your building. It's wide open, it's accessible. It can accommodate a larger group. You've got residential areas, so it's a little protected in that area. So it offers you high visibility, open meeting point, open space. About again, 2 blocks northeast of your building. These are all, by the way, in your emergency action plan, so you can click on the links. It'll give you the location on a Google map, so you can see where they are in proximity to your building. Next slide. The alternate is the lot that's over at the corner of Southeast 11th and Morrison. There's a corner lot, and it's directly north of your building. So again, close proximity, open area. It's not that big, so I mean, in terms of space, I don't know if it offers you more space than your employee parking lot, but again, it is an option. Okay, next one. There's another space that's 2 blocks northeast of your building, and this is a corner lot. Again, it offers accessibility, visibility, and responders can get to and from this area. So it's a practical site that you can consider. Okay, so this one basically is about a block south of your building, and it's at Southeast 10th and Yamhill. And you have 2 things here. You've got an open public access courtyard, and you have access to an underground covered parking lot through the market of choice. So if you have inclement weather, if you have need to get out of the weather, you can actually go under and go onto the covered parking area. There's another spot that's you recognize is west of your building, it's 926 Southeast Morrison. It's in front of the Red Clouds Collective. So again, space-wise, it's not going to accommodate a whole lot of folks, but if you need someplace close, it's 1 block west of your building. Here's another covered area. So again, we tried to put in a couple of different facilities, covered, open space, depending on the weather, depending on the situation. You can choose which one you need to use. But you should, when you practice, you probably want to just say, okay, just for practice purposes, we're always going to go to this site. However, if it's in use or blocked or can't be accessed, this is our next site. Again, circumstances will determine your approach. So we don't want to say always use this one spot. Why? It could be on the day that you need to use it, there's a construction crew there. There's something going on there. So you have to be prepared and say, well, let's get used to using any of these. And while I'm at it, probably doesn't hurt to knock on your neighbor's door, your neighboring businesses, and say, hey, by the way, we're Native Arts and Culture. Can we use your facility if we have to evacuate in an emergency? And maybe there's a quid pro quo. We can offer you our employee parking lot if you need to use our space, if you need a space. It's always a good thing. Okay, so we talked about what to do when you evacuate. These are important factors. Again, it all goes along with the not just self-care, but care of your coworkers, and that's to just take a head count, make sure you know who's present, who's missing, who's needs medical attention. Report that to your person that is in charge, if that's your fire and life safety director with the radio, that person can notify and designate someone to call 911 and say, please call 911, let them know we have 3 individuals that need medical attention, et cetera, et cetera. And this is our location. All right. Now we open it up for your comments, your questions. things that we have not addressed. I know we covered a lot of ground and we covered it quickly. So, you know, again, credit to you for grasping all of this and running with it and utilizing it. But let's just, let's bring it back together now and let's try to talk about anything that we didn't touch on. As well as if there are things that you thought, hey, you know what, Pete, that was great, but I have a better idea. We want to hear that. Hey, don't all go at once. You knew I was going to say that. Okay.
I'll go.
Okay, Robert, please.
One, I thought that was great. I mean, I didn't get to attend the first one, so not knowing the building very well, I know when I go in there, I'm always thinking about, okay, if something goes down, how do I get out of here? Sort of like when you're on a plane, where's your nearest exit? How do we get out?
Yeah, yeah.
But I know like with what my son's school is doing right now, because Seattle, Portland, we're all in a pretty sensitive seismic area right now, and the big one is supposed to be around the corner. So they're always sending. I know the more you hear things, the more you're in tune with it. So,
right.
Because when emergencies happen, like Tony was saying, you sort of lose your mind. But the more you hear it, the more you're probably going, oh, okay, yeah, I go do this first, call 911, whatever. But they're good about just sending reminders about even the small things. Hey, do you remember that you need emergency water in your earthquake preparedness kit? It'll just be one sentence, boom, done. A week later, they'll be saying, hey, you're going to need food for probably at least a month. Get emergency, they just small things.
Keeps it in the forefront of your mind.
Yeah, it keeps things
on your radar screen.
Yeah, it keeps things top of mind because, you know, again, the object here is not to cause everyone to go into alarm mode, but basically just to say, well, you need to think about this because just like, well, I mean, it should become second nature, like when you get in your vehicle and if you don't drive an electric vehicle, let's say you're planning a trip and you got to say, well, how much gas do I have in my car? I don't want to get out on this road trip, start this long road trip and I only got less than a quarter tank of gas. I got to make sure I have enough fuel. I have enough, things, food or snacks or whatever to keep me going. So, yeah.
Complacency will cause emergency preparedness to be a perishable skill if we're not careful.
Good one. All right. Thank you, Robert. Good observation. Others? Did anyone have concerns or questions about so we only covered, we had time to cover the lockdown and we had time to cover the evacuation. We feel like those are two very important ones. The other ones are similar. So that's why we wanted to kind of get kind of a little more laser focus, especially on evacuation, because we've been talking a lot about fire and life safety. But what did you feel about the scenarios? Is there something we could have done differently there? Did they seem realistic enough for you?
Yeah, to me they seemed really comprehensive, and it felt like there was room to add people's additions into the conversation as well.
Also, I think for the basement one, I think since the basement is a really dark place, I feel like someone may need help if they're down there. And it's sort of hard to travel down there. It's hard to navigate. The stairs are steep. Someone may need help if they're down there. So that's something that we should also think about in regards to if there is fire or something in the basement.
Good. So certainly you should be thinking about if the fire, I think, going back to the statement Beckett made earlier was that it may be that the fire sensors only pick up in one certain area. They may not be throughout the entire building. So if sensors are going off and if there's sprinklers going off in one area, we need to make sure that everyone knows in all areas, because it could be that this is a rapidly expanding fire. Everyone needs to get out. In any case, with the fire sprinkler system going, that's your cue. Everyone leaves the building. Don't try to, figure out where it's coming from or how to fight it. Just get yourself and get your coworkers out. Good. Other thoughts?
I was going to say, if I may, that, in times where, you might think, well, it's daylight. It might be an overcast day. It might be, dusk, or where you think, okay, well, I can see really well, but what if power goes out to the building? Now need a flashlight. So just like, Lovey said, you have to go extract someone from the basement. You're not going to be able to see, a low light condition. So, it's important to know. I guess that points back to knowing where the emergency equipment is and also knowing where your emergency exits are.
Exactly. Good point. Okay. All right. So, Amber, don't we have another survey or poll, actually? Thought we did. Okay.
I'm sorry.
All right. No worries. Okay. So, we are at 3:22. We were scheduled to go longer. However, everyone made such great progress through the simulations and through the discussion portions. I feel that we've covered a good amount of ground. If there are some things that come up after the fact, there always are. There's some questions that didn't get addressed or we forgot to raise them at this point. Please, if you forward those, Gabby, would you mind if you get those questions, if you could forward those to us, and we'll certainly be happy to come back and address them. And
Yes,
we have
of course.
lots of resources that we can send to you, other links to other sites for other additional information. We just want to make sure that we leave you in a good place where you feel like I've been given some additional tools and some additional knowledge. And again, going back to the statement that I made at the very first training session, we want to put your feet on the path to knowledge. This isn't to make you experts in one fell swoop. That's not real. That's not reality. The confidence will come with repetition and with practice. And the more practice that you do, the more your muscle memory will kick in, and you won't have to think about what you do. You just know, and you can have a very good condition response to these things that come up.
I think the analogy I used was it's almost like training wheels. We have a template. We're in calm waters right now, so it's good and easy to reference these things. But we have to think towards a time when we may, there may be an event, and all of a sudden, boom, we have an emergency. So, now we can plug in, and you have things committed to memory. You have a cognitive method ability. You have, you may not know every answer to every question, but you know how to get it.
So just looking ahead, you're probably thinking, okay, Pete, this is great for today. What are we thinking about in the future? So this is not just a one-time set it and forget it thing, as I've said a couple of times. The next, looking forward, we'll be working with your team there, your leadership team, in terms of how to build tabletop exercises, how to run them, how to conduct them. We're already talking with, we've talked with leadership about the importance of having a safety committee, for example. And that's another safe space for people to come together that have security or emergency preparedness concerns, to raise those points or raise those concerns, and to actually have the empowerment to move forward and do things with that. So we can say, for example, if several of us have concerns about a particular safety issue, bring that up in the safety committee, bring that up to your leadership, and basically let's decide together on a path forward that we can use to address this. Let's use what we've learned so far as a stepping stone. We've learned some valuable fundamental skills and knowledge. Let's put that to use and practice so that we can know and be prepared if those situations ever occur. So we'll feel better prepared. Okay. All right. Well, we are almost at 3:30. And what we're prepared to do, unless anyone else has any comments, concerns, we're going to gift you back 15 minutes. We were slated to go a little later. But before I do, Gabby, Kevin, Beckett, any questions, any things, remarks or comments you'd like to make in parting? Anyone?
No, I appreciate you sharing the next steps. I was going to ask you to do that, but you beat me to it because I wanted to make sure that people knew that, you know, this is a work in progress. And so we have some ideas of how to keep this going. And I mean, just for myself, in terms of how I learn, you know, the SRP, we talked about it 2 weeks ago when we had the training. And so, you know, to keep revisiting those terms and what they mean and how to proceed, I think that it has to be ongoing, or else, you know, if you don't use it, you lose it. You know, recording these sessions is a good thing too. Unfortunately, we weren't able to record the previous session, but like, I know this session has been recorded, so it'd be great to, you know, if we could make this available to have it kind of as part of one of the materials and tools that we share.
Good.
And thank you for the training and for being our partners in this.
Absolutely.
I was just thinking, like, same time last year, we didn't have anything.
Mm-hmm.
We had nothing.
Yes.
So this is great progress.
I think it's a great reflection on you all because of your engagement and the fact that you want to know or gain this knowledge. So, you know, credit is where credit's due, and that's with you, because it starts with you and having the interest in saying, what do we need to do to protect ourselves and those we care about, those who work next to us, with us. So that's great.
Absolutely.
So anything else? If not, then I think we're at a place where we'll close for now. And Gabby, Kevin, and Beckett, we will circle back with you and touch base so we can start talking about the next steps. But for now, I want to thank all of you for your valuable input, your perspectives, your time. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Hey, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thanks.
everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.